Hey, what's going on? How many people we got here? Oh, we already got comments. People are ready to go. All right, let's do this. So this morning we just launched Remix version 0.16. I think we've got one more, 0.17, and then we're hitting V1 beta. So that's the goal anyway. I turned 40 in 3 weeks, and I wanted to have Remix shipped before I turned 40. So we'll see how it goes. So the coolest new feature, I think, in Remix so far, in 0.16, sorry, not Remix so far, in Remix 0.16 is this new npm init remix. Turns out if you have a package on npm called create-whatev, then you can publish that, and then people can say npm init whatev. So we're doing with Remix. So here we go. We're going to init Remix. So before we had all these starter templates, right? And you'd have to go download or clone a Git repo, get your npm rc in there for our private repository for these packages, and just kind of goof around with that. Oh, you see the little sparkles. I love it. All right, welcome to Remix. Let's get you set up with a new project. Where would you like to create your app? Sure. Where do you want to deploy? Choose Remix if you're unsure. It's easy to change deployment targets. So we're going to be adding more to this list. So at the moment, we've just got a Remix app server, which is another new thing in Remix 0.16, Architect, Fly, or Vercel. So let's do the Remix app server. And you can choose TypeScript or JavaScript. This was such a pain for us with the starter templates, because we don't want to force everyone to use TypeScript. And now with our generator, it's going to be a whole lot easier for us to maintain JavaScript and TypeScript starter templates. So I'm going to go with TypeScript because I like debugging in my... Actually, I don't like debugging, so I like when my editor tells me I've got a bug before I run it. Do you want me to run npm install? Yes. Detected Remix license in npm rc. Check that out. That's cool. So this initializer, it'll go and open up your home npm rc. It's going to try to parse and be like, do they have something that looks like a token in there? And if you do, then we're not going to goof around with npm rcs because we know that will work for the npm install. Additionally, if you have, if you're exporting Remix token, like in a bash rc or something like that, and then you put your token in there, we will detect that as well, and then we'll actually generate an npm rc that uses your Remix token inside of there, and we'll put that in the repo package itself. It's not the repo package, the repo project itself. Okay, so here we go. That's it. cd into my Remix app and run npm run dev. I'm going to actually open it up in VS Code, and let's check this thing out. Bump up the font for everybody. So over here, look, kicked out this app for us. It's got this app folder, app routes. It should look familiar for those of you who have been using the starter templates. It's all there for you. Notice there's no like server. There's no like Vercel. There's no Express thing going on. Let's get our package JSON. We're going to run npm dev as remix run 3. I'm going to talk about run 3 in a second. So I'm going to run that npm run dev. All right. Watching Remix app in development mode. Remix app server started at localhost 3000. Built in 184 milliseconds. Let's open that up. All right, there we go. We got our app running. I'm going to adjust my windows a bit here. Okay, so what we actually have now is a production Remix server. So the whole time we've been saying Remix isn't your server, it's just an endpoint on your server. And that's still a big design feature of Remix itself, where if you're deploying to Vercel or Architect or or you have your own Express app and you want to start moving routes over into a Remix app, you have the ability to do that by just pointing your Remix build output, this is the server build. Just point your server at that thing with an adapter like Express Oversell, and then it'll serve that. So we don't want to own your server. Maybe you want webhooks on an Express endpoint or a serverless function. Maybe you want WebSockets on some other function. So we're keeping that architecture. But for those of you who are like, you know what, I don't care about having my own server. I just want my Remix app. We've got this built-in server now for you that's production ready, and all you got to do is run remix serve in production somewhere. So anywhere you can deploy an Express app, anywhere that runs Node, like you could put it in a Docker container, ship it off to AWS, Google App Engine. I'm sure Azure runs that stuff. Fly.io, Render, all these places can run just a plain old Node app, like in a container or something. And so, yeah, we've got this nice built-in server, which is pretty cool. Notice the question down there from Josh. How do I get PrimCloud in that list? $50. Venmo me. Reach out to us and we can check it out. But yeah, we want that list to be big. We're not trying to have a bunch of like, oh, these are our best friends, and so they're the only ones we show in here. We want to let you deploy wherever you want to. Okay, real quick, run 3. That's hilarious. In the end, when we get to our 1.0 beta, there's going to be Remix Run, Remix Build, and Remix Dev. So Remix Run, this is what Run 3 is right now, and this is when you're using our built-in app server. And you'll notice that it starts the app server and watches Remix and app development mode. So this is both things. It's the dev asset server that's watching for file changes to rebuild, but it's also the app server in development mode. So you can just do it in one process. If you are not using the built-in server, then you'll be using Remix Dev along with something like Arc Sandbox. And so you'll run these two things next to each other, 2 tabs set up concurrently or PM2, whatever you want to do. But in this case, you brought your own server, and so your server has its own way of starting up and running in development. And then this is just our dev asset server. So you'll always run those next to each other when you bring your own server. But if you don't bring your own server, we got this nice Remix Run. Maybe though, instead of calling this Remix Run in the final release, we should call it like Remix Run final May 2020.psd. Okay, let's check something else out in here. Undo everything. Another new feature. What is this? In my root component. Use live reload. Well, where did that come from? So I can now, in my app, say things like, yo, save it. And it live reloads. We can even open up the console and see some logging going on over here. Hey, it's fast. There we go. Let's preserve that. Preserve log. There we go. Hey, it's super fast. So this opens up a WebSocket, talks to your app, tells it to reload the page. There's a lot of so anyway, this is awesome. I've been using it for a day, and it's been great. A huge improvement for your developer experience there, and it is so close to the same experience as HMR. It actually has some benefits over HMR that I kind of like in a Remix world. If you are working on a loader and you're changing this loader to like new date plus LOL, and I save this, notice down here my date now has that in it. Hot module replacement typically is just like replacing the components on the page. And I mean, I guess when we get to this, we can like do big tricks to recall the loaders and stuff too. But this, it's going to take us a lot of work. HMR is built on top of Babel. In React, it depends a lot on Babel. And we just know that's a very big task for us. And this gets you almost all the way there. And so for a marginal improvement, we're gonna wait and we're gonna ship and we're gonna tighten up some other things. We're gonna get on Cloudflare workers, yeah, we've got some other big features that we think are a lot more important than the marginal difference between live reload and HMR. So anyway, this is exciting. I'm really pumped about this. I'm gonna do one more thing now. Let's do. Oh, I forgot to shut down that server. Okay. Let's do npm init remix again, and this time I am going to start a new remix app, and then I'm going to deploy it to AWS Lambda in as long as it takes pretty much for npm install to finish on something. We're going to call this one my AWS app. So I'm going to pick architect here, Typescript. Yes, I would love you to do an npm install. Oh, very good question, William. Yes, we have a process env node env equals development check in there. And so when you run remix build, that use live reload hook is just going to be an empty function. Like it's not going to do anything. If you really want it, just like not even there in the component, you can do that check in your component, but you're going to have to tell ESLint to be quiet because now it's going to be like, oh my gosh, that's a conditional hook. We put the check inside the hook so we don't have to like, I don't know, talk about ESLint all the time. Okay. See if there's any other questions. Josh, I've had issues where HMR has caused browsers to have to consume. Yeah, so that's the other thing about HMR is like, it is so cool, but it is still so precarious. It's, anyway, yeah, I love it. I want it eventually, but it's not table stakes for us right now when we've got live reload. All right, cool. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking through the comments. All right, so now notice last time we finished, it said, that's it, cdn and run npm run dev. But this time it says, that's it. Since you're using Arc, make sure to check the README for development and deployment instructions. I got to learn how to not have words get chopped off in a CLI message like that. So we're going to open up my AWS app. And let's get this thing deployed. So you'll notice now the README, when you pick one of these other templates, the README has some additional information. So it's going to say, hey, if you want to deploy here, you're going to need a couple of things. They recommend installing it globally, so do this. And then in development, you're going to run Arc Sandbox, and then in another tab, npm run dev. You're adults, so we think that you can handle 2 tabs open at once. And then you're ready to go. So let's give that a shot. So I'm going to say Arc Sandbox in 1. And then over here, I'm going to say npm run dev. Now I should have an app running in the Arc Sandbox. So again, we're not the server in this case now. We're just an endpoint on the server. We have pointed architect. We've said, hey, any route with any method, post, get, put, delete, we want you to run the function that's inside of this server folder. So this is new. This folder wasn't in our last template. This one is now your server. You own this thing. And this is what Arc is going to deploy to AWS. But we're not going to deploy the app. That doesn't need to go up. We dump the build inside of here, the server build. And then we dump the browser build into here. So pretty cool. And since we're using Remix Dev, live reload will work here too, except for I just realized that this template is different. I don't get to share this template because their href for the favicon has an underscore static. And I haven't abstracted how to share with that yet. So we're going to bring in live reload. And this is what you'll need to do in your existing apps. Use live reload. And then come on down here and dump it in. And now I've got live reload. This is kind of interesting too, because you might wonder, like, well, why do I have to put that in there? In other frameworks, you don't have to do that. In other frameworks, you don't get to do this. And in other frameworks, you don't get to do this. In Remix, we give you all of your entry points from your architect server. This is yours. You can do whatever else you need to do in here, to your server entry. Like, you are in charge of the response. We could be sending like text responses inside of here instead of a Remix app. So since we have given you complete control over every entry point, even the HTML, like we don't even render that part. That's all you. The only way to get live reload scripts on the page is to put that thing in there. You have total control. Maybe you don't want to use live reload for a minute. Maybe you've got some really expensive database thing and you're like, I don't want that thing updating every single time I reload this page or save the page. Anyway, so that's in there. Everything's cool. So I'm going to now deploy this thing. So here we go. Had I not taken all those sidebars, this could have been the very first thing we did. So I'm going to say npm run build. It's going to build Remix for production. That was quick. And we're going to say arc deploy. Now you would need to follow, look at this. This is cool. I love Architect. You would need to follow these instructions down here. Deploying. So it says before you can deploy, you'll need to do some stuff with AWS. First, you need AWS CLI. They've got, we link you off to the guide for that from AWS themselves. And then you need to follow the architect setup instructions. They give you a set of instructions here to get that set up on your machine, whether it's your local machine or CI, whatever it is. And so they've got some nice instructions for you over here. Blah, blah, blah. This looks really intimidating. It's really not too bad, or at least it wasn't when I did it. But maybe I was really sharp that day. Anytime I start messing with AWS, I get scared. But Architect does a great job of chilling it out for me and making it easy. So once these two things are in, like I just did, npm run build, and then arc deploy, and then you're in business. So this is going to take, all right, so it deployed our app. Our Lambda is up there. So now what it's going to do is it's looking at our public folder and our build folder. Oh, I got my old build in there. Anyway, and it's publishing all of that up to the server as well. So I'm going to copy this URL and we'll wait for this. Oh, cool. It's done. Here we go. Remix app running on an AWS Lambda. Super easy. So that's the goal with all these little templates, is each one of the readmes. And the template also had these preferences in here. It had this app.arc. So there's like config, just some sort of boilerplate that each one of these servers needs. And our little templates are going to put all that stuff in there for you, and then give you some nice instructions so that, like, you know, the second you start the product, you're already in production, which is super important to be able to deploy early and often. Like we've learned that for years and years and years. And so we're trying to make that just so easy for you to be able to do. I think that's it. We fixed some bugs, no big deal. Yeah. I'm going to hang out here for a few seconds, answer any other questions that there might be. I know there's some lag, so I'll count to like 15 in my head, or just keep rambling. Of course, it looks like Michael is on the ball already. I looked up the origin of on the ball, and it's exactly probably what you think. You say, keep your eye on the ball in pretty much every sports ball game. I say it to my soccer team, who I have practice with tonight. And so keep your eye on the ball. So it means you're paying attention to what's going on. .server and client file names. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kent's right. So this is technically in 15.5. But that's right. We have the server and client files. That's a good point. Let's do that real quick, and then we'll probably call it a stream. So every now and then you get a tricky little either an NPM dependency or you've got your own code that wants to do something that is just very specific to the server or the client. And we will generally, our compiler will generally get rid of that stuff for you pretty effectively. But let's come up with an example here. So I'm going to make a new file here and I'm going to be like windowkeys.ts. And in here I'm going to say let keys equal object.keys window. And then I'm going to export my keys. And over here in root, we're going to say import keys from window keys. Save that. And then let's, I don't know, let's just console log them. Keys. I'm going to reload. Can you guess what's going to happen? Oh, that's the production one. Oh no! Reference error, window is not defined. This is a module side effect, not a side effect. A side effect just means something did something, rather than just input, output, like something actually happened. You wrote to a database, you console logged. These window keys, we had a side effect here where we read from window in the module scope. So by simply importing this module, our app is going to try to read window. Well, this module runs on the server too. And we're not going to go parse all of your code and try to figure out every single little thing that might not work on the server. That's got to be your job. That would just not be really possible for us. So one thing to do here, and this is what you had to do before, is you could just be like if type of window does not equal, or I guess equals undefined. Oh yeah, does not equal undefined. Oh, good grief. I'm getting lag from my live stream. But then this is kind of weird because I need like a keys up here too. That's like undefined or something. You don't really need to do that. And then we'll have to like reassign it here. And it's just kind of gross. Normally where you see this kind of a thing is when you're initializing something, like you're going to import create stripe from stripe.js or something, browser. I can't remember what they call it. You're like, I want to create stripe with window.env.stripe public key. And now you got your stripe instance here, and you could export that thing. And that would be lovely. But we won't be able to do this because the server is going to flip out. So instead of having to do all this weird window dancing and like, oh no, is this going to work on the server or not? We can say, I think this, we can say .client on here. And this is a little hint to the Remix compiler. Let's start up our sandbox again since it exploded. Hey. Oh, I'm not importing the right. I didn't save this file. All right. So the compiler there was like, you tried to import a file that doesn't exist and we're booting up, and so I'm just going to explode. Okay, now check it out. We're not going to get this error anymore. Server's happy. Look, we logged undefined. And then over here in the browser's also happy. We got all the keys on window. This is kind of fun to do on websites. And you look down at the bottom and see what weird things they put there. Like you can go to Twitter and be like, I wonder what they put on window. Oh, what was that? So here we go. Object.keys window. If I could spell. And we'll check out the bottom. What did they put on window? Scroller, GA data, GA plugins, Google tag, GA branch, mousetrap, Webpack JSON P, metadata. Got all sorts of fun stuff in here. Anyway, kind of fun. Yeah, so that's server client. If you put .client on the end, it will only be in the client bundle. If you put .server on the end, it'll only be in the server bundle. The server one is useful when you've got you got server code that has module side effects, and then our compiler isn't going to remove that stuff. I'm not going to get into all the details right now. And so every now and then you can get a problematic node module like that. And so all you got to do is put it in its own file, drop a .server on the end, and then our compiler will just ignore that for the browser bundle and only put it in the client bundle. And that is it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.